Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's Festival of Enterprise Live webinar with me, Alex Chisnell, hosting for the Festival of Enterprise, and I am joined by Christian Dorffer, CEO and Chairman of Sweet Capital. Good afternoon to you, Christian.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Whereabouts are you at the moment today? Where can we find you?
You can find me in Lisbon, actually. So I've spent 20 years living in London, but recently moved to Lisbon with my family. So I am blessed with infinite sunshine and a positive outlook.
Nice, very nice. Well, we've got, what is traditionally, I guess, a little bit of an Indian summer here at the moment. I'm down in Poole in Dorset, which is beautiful today, but we know, unlike Lisbon, it's not going to last very long. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Gives you messages from Victoria and Pippa as well. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. So just to frame what we're going to talk about today, so we are talking about how to make a positive impact. Christian, as I say, is CEO and Chairman of Sweet Capital, an investment fund created by the developers of the Candy Crush video game series. And Christian's going to be covering how business owners can have a positive impact in the world and how global technology can impact our lives for good. Those of you who haven't joined us before, just direct you to the chat box on the right-hand side of the page where some of you have already posted up. Let me know where you are watching from. Use this opportunity if you want to comment on anything we're talking about. If you'd like to connect, post up your LinkedIn profile. Normally we'd be doing this kind of thing at a live event with real human beings where you can actually connect with each other. And whilst it is different online, we've had a pretty successful series here. We're coming up to 200 live episodes here at the Festival of Enterprise, where, as those of you who are regular viewers know, we should be at Olympia and the NEC, but instead we are online. So make use of the opportunity. Any questions that you've got for Christian as well, pop them in there and we'll be able to answer them towards the end of today's webinar. And we are also streaming live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. So again, do interact on there. Come and join us on this live platform here on Crowdcast. So maybe just to start things off, Christian, you can tell us a little bit about your background with Sweet Capital and how things have or haven't changed for you from a business point of view over the last 5 or 6 months with lockdown.
Sure. So I'm an entrepreneur turned investor. I started my career in management consulting and focused a lot on brand and marketing. And then a decade ago, I became an entrepreneur building first a gaming business focused on early childhood development. I was kind of intrigued by how addictive mobile phones were for little children, yet how little wholesome content you could find on mobile phones. So I set up a business called Mindshapes with the founders of Playfish, and we created very wholesome content to stimulate early childhood development using mobile phones. Fast forward a few years, I became good friends with the King founders, and when they realized the kind of impact they could have, they were really excited about building a King.com founders fund and asked me if I would like to set it up and run it for them.
Right.
And this was in summer 2015. And we kind of talked about, well, there are lots of VCs out there. What makes us different? Sure, we've got a lot of experience with gaming and mobile and Candy Crush. 2 years before we set this up, represented 10% of the overall App Store revenue. So really a tremendous success. So we wanted to bring that experience to the market, to the next generation of young founders. But I think more importantly, the key thing that motivated the King founders were to say, well, how can we have a positive impact in the world? I guess it's kind of a combination of, their legacy, but also the fact that 3 billion people now have a smartphone in their pockets, which provide them with access to information, a route to making money, ways to save money, reduce their cost and things like that. So we very early decided just to focus on things we know, which is consumer, mobile, and positive impact in the world. We couldn't invest in gaming because my partners were still running King for a while. Now there's only one of them left, Sebastian, who's running all the studios at King, but the other 4 founders have left and are working more actively with Suite now. So we set it up, and 5 years in, we've done about 40 investments, many of the most exciting, fastest growing apps in the App Store, about a little over half in the US and the rest in Europe. And interestingly, I think just connecting to your point about the last 6 months, in many ways, the last 6 months have been, positive for our portfolio companies because they're all mobile. And we can't go to the office and are spending a lot more time on their mobile. And many of our portfolio companies have really surged in growth.
Right.
But I think there are also several of them that are struggling, just like many others, during the pandemic, particularly the ones that relate to people getting out of their house and traveling and getting together with other people.
And as you say a minute ago, there are loads of VC venture capital funds out there. What does make a difference, and what do you think attracts different founders to want to look for investment from yourself?
So we've never really done any PR, just because we've been very focused on, we invest very narrowly. So I think, and we're a small team. For the first 3 years, it was just me. And since then, I've been joined by the former marketing director of King, Alan Fong, and Pippa Lam. So now we have a bit more bandwidth, but I think people are coming to us because they look for people with experience that can really help them. And we do invest very early stage. So, we don't have the same, we're only investing our own capital. So our check size is very different from a Sequoia or an Index, etc. So typically we do like $500,000 as the first check, right? So, but we are obsessed by digital products, and we are entrepreneurs ourselves. So we kind of love to roll up our sleeves. So I think most of the people that come to us through word of mouth. Either other investors that say, oh, if you're building something in mobile, that you're building a social network, or you're building something where gaming experience is relevant, they tend to come to us. So most of it is kind of word of mouth.
And what kind of sectors are you actively investing in at the moment, and are you actively investing at the moment? Because I know a lot of the conversations we've had here at the Festival of Enterprise have been entrepreneurs clearly anxious and worried that there isn't investment out there.
Yeah, so we remain very active. We've done, I think, 6 new deals this year, and we typically do max 8 deals a year. So we're actually a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I would say that a couple of those that we've done this year are conversations that started a year ago. So they're not completely new. They just happen to, stars have aligned just now. So, but I think we remain active. But what we've seen is that it's become a lot harder to raise money. A lot of investors, the kind of investment in early stage consumer is can be divided into professional investors and what I would call hobbyists. A lot of the professional investors really prefer to get in the A round, or where there's metrics, it's revenue, it's growing, there's a lot of risk off the table. Whereas a lot of the hobbyists were very happy to come in earlier. A lot of those hobbyists have kind of pulled back a bit because they find it really difficult to qualify deals now. And certainly when it's harder to raise money, it just kind of exacerbates the risk of investing early, because it all depends on you. If even if you're writing a small check, you might be the one saving the company or not. You don't continue investing, right? So, so we've seen that. I guess in conclusion, I would say that there's probably a similar amount of money being deployed, but they tend to go to fewer companies.
Right,
And it's kind of driving up valuations in some of those companies that are all of a sudden spoiled for choice. And at the same time, it's interesting, in the last year or so, a lot of the big funds have raised really substantial new funds. And to remain competitive amongst themselves, a lot of them have actually started investing at seed stage again. But so I think it's been really a difficult environment to fundraise, both for your pre-seed and your seed, and to many extent also your Series A.
And do you think, I know the conversation we've had here before is that potentially, you might shed more light on this, that those companies that have invested in their portfolio have then had to go back in and reinvest in that portfolio rather than invest in new startups, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, this comes down to your fund size and your fund strategy, right? Most VC funds have like a 3-year deployment cycle, so they tend to deploy maybe 50+% of their whole funds in the first 3 years, and then they retain the rest for follow-ons in the next 7 years. And I think this pandemic has definitely accelerated the need for bridge financing on a lot of funds. So it is a bit of a zero-sum game when you have a fund. You have to kind of make it work. But I think in our situation, and I know many of my friends who are VCs, there has been a few portfolio companies where you literally had to say, look, revenue have gone from millions last month to 0 or negative. This month, right? So you have to take some super drastic measures really, really quickly. And it's really been, it's been difficult because is the pandemic going to last 6 months, 9 months, 18 months? How much runway do you need? So literally you've had to, most of these companies basically cut it back down to the bare bones of saying you need at least 18 months runway to have a decent chance of coming out on the other side. And unfortunately, there are very few ways around cutting your cash burn rather than restructuring. Some of our later stage companies have grown very fast, and I think a restructuring was actually helpful for them. They were needing to restructure, but for most early stage companies that aren't profitable yet, it's been pretty brutal.
Really interesting. We're getting questions through, which I will kind of leave to the end. But I thought maybe you could touch on not so much an age thing, but with regards to the founders. And I see this last 4 years I've been working with Virgin Startup, Richard Branson's not for profit, and more and more you see Generation Z, millennials, etc., want to make more of a positive impact in the world. Do you see that within the founders that approach you, or more so that the community of founders that you've built yourself within that portfolio? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Christian.
It's interesting. I think young founders, almost any founders tend to get their idea based on their personal experiences. Like every founder that I know that have built a parenting app or something for children wouldn't have built it when they, before they had kids themselves.
Indeed.
So, and the same thing with people in their, who are just coming out of college. They're looking to solve problems that they have themselves. And they're, the world is all of a sudden looking quite uncertain for a lot of young people, right? So employment will be critical. So how are they going to make money if there are no jobs? How are they going to pay their bills? How are they not going to be overcharged for things? I think there's a real, in many ways, healthy reckoning amongst young people of saying, do we really need this? We don't need to own all these products. I value services. I want to invest in my future. Do I really need to travel all this way for this job? Do I really need to put up with this, right? So I think things that I see that our young founders care about, and I think our founders are really a good representation of the founders out there, because for every deal that we do, we probably see 10 companies looking for funding doing almost the same thing, and we backing the one that we think will have the greatest chance of success, right? But things like paying the bills, finding ways to work from home or become independent, like as a designer or as a fitness instructor or whatever, interior designer, things like that is key. Affordable, high quality education is key for these people. Affordable living, living more meaningful lives.
That's a big one.
That's a key one. Younger people really care about the environment, and I think that's key. So brands that are designed, and we've invested in some of these to make the world a better place from an environmental point of view, I think is important. And civil rights, freedom of speech is a huge issue. So if I look at the kind of pitches that we get, I would say 80% of them fall within these categories. And we also receive a lot of pitches from things that are not necessarily kind of designed to have a positive impact in the world. So we're not doing them. Or it may have a positive impact in the world, but it's not really what's driving the founders. So we kind of put those aside. And in some cases, there was one company we were allowed to invest in where I was a bit torn because, obviously, so it's a company that basically does men's health products direct to consumer. And their first product was Viagra on subscription.
Right.
And I saw it, I looked and I said, well, this is kind of crazy. This is going to blow up. This is going to become huge. But I can't really see how every man having Viagra in the pocket is going to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So we passed on it. And within a year or a year and a half, I could have invested at a 10 million valuation. They were raising money at a 300 million valuation, right?
No way. Really?
So sometimes you have to pass on some of these amazing things because we're driven by a principle. But compared to like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you can actually build a unicorn that is good for the world. So it's not either or. It's not like an NGO or a nonprofit or a profit. Nowadays, we have lots of examples of companies that are doing both. And some of the interesting ones in our portfolio that are really timely, one is in San Francisco, it's called moss.com. And moss.com is basically a service that helps underprivileged students get access to financial aid for college. So there are apparently trillions of dollars available in America to students, but the problem is they don't know what those aids are, what scholarships that they are, and they don't know how to apply for it. So this is the platform that basically connects you with and matches you with financial aid that's right for you. And it's so for I think it's $149 per year. You can apply, and on average, each student gets about $25,000 per year in financial aid. So this is just awesome. This is like a great example of a founder that's driven by positive impact, solving a real significant problem, especially in the US. And they, we invested in the seed round, and Sequoia led their A round, and now they're growing like crazy, right? So I think Moss.com is great. We also are investors in a UK company called Peanut. Peanut is a social network for moms.
Peanuts. Yeah, Michelle Kennedy.
That's it.
Another guest of this show. Yes, I've had Michelle on the show before. Done a live event with Michelle as well. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about Peanut, because I love Peanut.
Yeah, so I think Facebook was obviously awesome and had its time, but now there are all these kind of verticals or niche communities that aren't really feeling that they're served sufficiently by the more generalist platforms like Facebook. So Peanut is really the first social network app where you can connect with moms who have children for the first time that are like you, and exchange ideas and learn from each other, and even meet up locally and create new friends. We have a great product in Peanut focused on women who are trying to conceive. I just think there's so many opportunities to create these verticalized social networks that are focused on a community that has a particular need or particular passion for something. So I think Sweet Capital, we probably investors in 6 or 7 different social networks, each focusing on a specific community with a specific need or specific passion.
Because previously we were talking offline before we came on. We were talking about the running community, about Midnight Runners and Greg Drack, etc. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that as well, because that's another social community.
Yeah, so I met Greg. Greg was pitching to me in 2014 a London business that where employers could basically reward their employees if they ran or cycled to work, so get points. And I didn't really feel that the business case was strong enough, but Greg is an ultra marathoner and great guy, and I love running in mountains. So I invited him for an event I'd created in Snowdon, basically running in the snow in the weekend with a few people. And it kind of dawned on us that both of us love the outdoors, and none of us really hate, or we both hate going to the gym, especially in London, where it's mainly in basements, right?
Yeah, no lie.
Solitary experience. So we said, why don't we create a fitness product, a community where we run outside, but we also do exercise outside, and make it available for everybody. So we basically designed this thing we call a boot camp run for ourselves, and then we put it on Facebook to see if other people would find it interesting. And about 18 months later, we had 500 people turning up on the South Bank every Tuesday night to run with us. And we had no employees, we had full-time jobs, and people just turned up. It was just like, we just created something that was based on values of being humble, working out, being kind, and making fitness fun. And now Midnight Runners it's run by volunteers around the world. So we are now 50,000 members. We are in China, Australia, US, Canada, Germany, Spain, France, and the UK, and continue to grow. But it's run by 150 volunteers.
Amazing.
And it's really about tapping into filling a void in a local market amongst like-minded people, and just putting in the effort. So
yeah, it's funny. I just, those of you who watch this regularly and listen to Screw It, Just Do It podcast regularly will know I only discovered running this time last year. May last year, I discovered running after hating it my entire life. And I became addicted to doing like 5K. And then during lockdown, I ended up running, I literally went from 5K to running a marathon within 5 weeks, which was on my own, no other humans, etc. But I absolutely love it. And I even went, rejoined David Lloyd last Saturday and took the family down there. And while they're all working out in the gym, I'm running outside and only going back into the gym to actually have a shower, because it's like the sun's shining, it's a blue sky. Why do I want to be inside a gym? I want to be outside. I want to be running in the fresh air.
It's interesting, right? Because I think the ultimate social hack for making you more active is that there are people that you like to hang out with that you only see if you actually go and exercise. Yeah. There's no app. There's no fancy equipment. There's no price package at the gym that's going to make me go. But if I love hanging out with you and a few other people, and the only way I get to see you is when we work out together, then I'm going to go. Yeah. So I think that's a real insight, that bringing people together in real life, like-minded people, whether it's online or on real life, I think is key. You can't just expect that you can put out a product and then people will just find it by themselves. And you have to have people that are motivating, that are living the product themselves and delivering themselves, and then the rest will follow. So it's quite crazy. We did a pop-up event in Barcelona once, and we put it out on Facebook, and within a week we had 10,000 people saying they were interested in the event. And on the night, we didn't actually announce the meeting place until 3 hours before, because we were afraid the police would come and block it.
Just the time, yeah.
We had 4,000 people turn up, and it was just just crazy, right? So
great vibe.
I mean, you see similar kind of situations with things like Parkrun, but also things like one of the founders of Moss.com was one of the instigators of the Arab Spring, and the kind of mass participation you get when people are really passionate about something, and it's just it gives me goosebumps just to talk about it. So technology as a platform is interesting because anyone can have an amazing idea, and now it's a lot easier to actually create great apps. If you have a really unique idea and you have a really clear idea who your audience is, and you want to have a positive impact in the world, you can very quickly get a lot of adoption in the App Store.
And a question I was going to ask, Victoria was asking something along a very similar theme that I think a lot of the audience would want to know as well. You've obviously been recipient of a lot of pitches over the last, say, 4 or 5 years. For you, what are some of the top things? Like Victoria says, 3 things. Whatever you can think of. What are some of the things that you look out for in a company, and also say maybe in an individual as well before actually making that investment?
I think if I should mention 3 things specifically, I think it needs to serve a particular need in market. It needs to be something that people are very likely to care a lot about. I think just coming up with some random idea, build it, and you hope people will turn up, that almost never works. So I think you need to figure out who's your target audience and what do they really, really care about. This is part of why I love this job, by the way. I learn so much about communities or people's needs that I would otherwise not hear about, right? Because they're not mainstream. So I think that's important. The second thing is that the founder needs to really, really care about this themselves. I think King is probably an exception in the sense that King was founded by 5 guys looking to create casual games for middle-aged women. They were not creating a product for themselves. But King was also their 3rd product, their 3rd business. So they had been around the block. They sold they built a portal business before, which included one of the biggest dating sites in Europe, which they sold to Lycos before founding King. So I think we really like to look for founders that really care about this. It's almost like a life's mission, because building certainly if you want to build a unicorn, it normally takes at least a decade to actually get there. So we want to find someone that care enough about it to make the compromises needed in life to see it through until the end. I think that's key. And then in a founder, we actually like founders that have something to prove. So founders that are kind of, it's kind of, maybe it's an interesting thing to think, because everybody think, it needs to be someone who's Ivy League and studied computer science at Stanford and but actually often some of the best founders are people who are middle class, who didn't go to that university, but who are hell-bent on proving to the world that they can make a difference. And so it's for us, we're really talent scouts. We're really looking for people that have a combination of that passion, but also the talent to actually pull it off. So that's the second one. And then the third one is, it's become kind of fashionable or like a lifestyle to say I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But you actually, and many people can actually put out an app themselves without raising any money, right? But if you're going to build a unicorn, you need to build something that generates a lot of revenue and cash flow. So we need to be able to, even if it's pre-revenue that we're looking at the company, we need to be able to use our imagination and see what is the business model that we feel comfortable will work in this sector or for this kind of product, right? So combination of are they solving a real problem for a significant audience that really care deeply about this? Does the entrepreneur have what it takes, and are they hungry enough to make it work? And C, is there like a solid business vision behind this? If those three things are at play, then we'll take a close look. But I mean, we see over 1,000 pitches a year, and we make 5 to 8 investments a year, right? So we are, and it's not because a lot of them aren't good. It's just like we focus on something super specific, and that's also why we're not out there doing lots and lots of marketing, because one of the things I hate doing is to say no.
Those are big numbers, aren't they? Then the amount of pitches, and interested to know, like at the moment, would you normally be attending different networking events and seeing people pitching their idea to a bunch of potential investors, or do you more likely in a scenario that people come to you directly and you're seeing that pitch individually? Because clearly there are only online events going on at the moment, and is that something that you've been looking into, or?
We do some from time to time. We focus quite heavily on the main markets that we're in. So the 3 biggest cities for us, for our investments, are London, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So we do go to events there. But I think in consumer, the word tends to get around quite quickly if someone interesting is building something interesting. So we actually hear a lot about it from founders that we've backed in San Francisco or London or Los Angeles, who say, I met this interesting founder at an event. You should speak. So it's almost impossible for us to be at every event, right? So, we focus very much on building deep relationships with the people that we back, and then we rely heavily on them. So when anyone asks them, what investors do you prefer to work with? Who would you recommend? Then we get those word of mouth intros. So that's kind of the main way that we get it. We're not super active at conferences and pitching events.
And how much, always interested to know this when I speak to somebody like yourself, always interested to know how much trust, money as well, obviously, but do you put in the actual person that's actually making that pitch, and maybe the immediate team around it, but more so that individual person that you're going to be investing in as the founder or co-founder of that company?
It's hugely important, right? Because when you're just an investor, you don't actually have a lot of rights. I mean, in theory, the person could run the company into the ground tomorrow and you would lose all your money. So it's really about trust. So I think we do reference checks on people, and it makes it easier to invest if it's a founder that has built 1 or 2 companies before. So there are people you can call. If it's someone fresh out of college building their first company, you really is literally down. And many of these guys are amazing at selling themselves, right?
Yeah, of course.
We always try to look for the best in people, but it's difficult. So I think we do like to build a relationship with people for a little while before we invest, just to get to know them.
Yeah, I could see there's a bit of conversation going on in the sidebar between some entrepreneurs up in Manchester there, between Phil and Adam, saying 12 years British Army, I'm very loyal and I've been trusted with lives. It's all going on up here in Manchester. I second the Manchester call. Does Greater Manchester qualify?
We're completely open to investing in companies anywhere, right? So I think the best thing is really to send us like a brief presentation of what problem you're trying to solve, why this is exciting, and who you are. And then if it's something that kind of gets is exciting for us, then we'll definitely take a call. And this year we've done, of the 6 investments we've done, 5 of them have been in the US. So these are people that some of them we knew already, but many of them are people we actually haven't met in person before. So we would make an investment in a startup in Manchester without meeting in person, in theory.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
And British Army tend to produce great quality people, by the way. So we hired so the CEO of Midnight Runners was a captain with the Coldstream Guards, and he's amazing. So I think Sandhurst is a great kind of breeding ground for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, indeed. And Andy says, I know we touched on it earlier, but Andy Rose says, yeah, I think business for purpose or profit for good has never been more relevant. And Adam adds, I think you could go even further and state efficiency and profit for good. Do you agree with that, Christian?
Totally. I love businesses that are using tech to help people save money. One of the fastest investment decisions that we ever took was in a company in LA called Ernie. And Ernie was founded by two Israeli naval captains who moved to Silicon Valley to see if they could make it. And Ernie is basically a price protection product where you download the app, and then it reads all the receipts that sit in your inbox. And in the US and to a certain extent, UK as well, companies will they will refund you the difference if you find the product cheaper within 90 days. I think it's Peter Jones that says never knowingly undersold. Quite cryptic message, but the effect is the same, right? So this app basically means that you download the app, it's free, and then they will automatically file claims on your behalf when price drops on any products, and then you receive checks in the mail, and then they take a commission on that. So so companies like that is like perfect for tech because you have data, you can automate the process of things you otherwise wouldn't do yourself. So there's so many examples of this. There's a company I really love at the moment. We're not investors, unfortunately. It's called Do Not Pay, and it's founded by a British entrepreneur called Joshua Bowder, and it's basically a robo-lawyer. He started out getting annoyed by having parking tickets, and he looked into the regulations about parking tickets and found that more than half of the parking tickets he ever gotten, he could actually have argued himself out of.
Right.
He automated this and created Do Not Pay, and it's basically you upload the details of your parking fine, and then the software will fight the case for you automatically. And now they have added a whole string of other kind of, consumer automatic claims, and it's just amazing, what the average consumer can do with technology. So we love founders who take technology to try to make the world better for consumers, and these are just a few of the examples.
Nice. There's a question earlier that I'm going to pull out. Just a position to you. How does a startup with an app idea protect that idea when approaching investors with all the context to exploit the idea themselves? Always a good question to ask, I think, for those who are new to the startup industry.
It's difficult, and I've built 4 companies myself, and you always think about this. Oh, should we share this? Should we do an NDA? I've never signed an NDA as an investor. And I have probably seen, as I said at the beginning of this call, for each deal we do, there are probably 10 pitches doing something similar or exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's really, really difficult to say, I think the best thing you can do, and certainly if you're doing mobile apps, typically, compared to deep tech, typically there isn't really much that you can apply for a patent on. Typically, you're using, standard technology, and it's really a matter of being the first out there with the product, or being the first to get some scale. So you need to be able to execute and get some scale, and then the app store is quite crude in the sense that many categories are kind of winner takes all. Think about Deliveroo, Uber, for example, in London, right? It's going to be really difficult, or even Amazon, to compete with those giants. But at the outset, they were not, there might have been a number of different companies doing the same, but they didn't have the same talent or access to capital, etc., as the founders of Deliveroo and Uber, and they tended to be the ones that would win. So I think my advice to founders would be, don't worry too much about the idea. There are lots and lots of people with the same ideas, and even if they're not in the app store, you can assume there are at least 5 teams working on building exactly what you're building. Yeah. So it's really about you building relationships with investors and partners, and then executing better than everybody else. Most companies, to be honest, I don't know what the exact rates are, but the number of people that go from raising a pre-seed to a C to an A, it's a pretty steep cliff, right? So you have a lot of competitors. Most of them will be gone next year because they ran out of money and they're unable to raise money again. So it's really about survival of the fittest in this market. The pandemic, in many ways, have killed off a lot of the people that weren't meant to succeed anyway, just because all of a sudden, access to funding is even harder. So the ones that survive are the ones that are, it's the cream of the crop that are able to actually make it through.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I think that's super helpful for everybody who is on here live, and they'll be listening to this on the podcast as well.
And I would say similarly on that, you need to be pretty flexible, right? So if you figure out that someone else is building a product that is much better than what you're doing, that have raised a lot more money than you do, you should probably consider pivoting and finding your space in the market. That's totally fine. The worst thing you can do is to come to a realization that the risks are much, much higher than you thought when you started 12 months in, and then spend another 24 months trying to fix the problem and not moving the needle after 12 months. I think so. You need to be flexible. On one hand, persistence is key. Unless you keep at it, you won't succeed. But it's in the details. It's in the business model. It's in the marketing. It's the market you're going after. You need to really kind of fine tune all along until you get product market fit, and then you can start growing, right? So don't be stubborn. Don't stick to that plan that you had necessarily when you start out, because if the writing is on the wall after 12 months, the writing will just get clearer and it'll be neon after 24 months,
Very good indeed. Appreciate your comments there, everybody as well. Andy, we need to solve a problem to be successful, but we have to help society to become sustainable.
Definitely. We just did an investment in a company in Mexico, of all places, and it's basically the first Latin American version of Ocado, because people are afraid to go to the supermarket. But in Latin America, if you want to order your groceries online, you have to pay the regular price for the goods, but then you have to pay on top of that for having it delivered. So this is the first company that is solving that, where you're basically paying the same as you are in the supermarket, but it's delivered to you at your door. So that's a really, really interesting business.
That's a good one. Thanks for your comments, Adam. We're creating and developing for 3.5 years while holding down our own jobs. Development began 10 months ago. And I mentioned that comment because I've got two of my closest friends who are both trying to get investment at the moment, and they've both been going for 3.5-4 years, completely different industries. And my question would be to you, Christian, and again, I know this is really difficult without more information on specific industries and opportunities, but do you think there's a window of opportunity? And you just touched on it, perseverance is key, but there's a window of opportunity for every business. But at what point does somebody give up on trying to realize that dream and shooting for the stars?
I think you need to be very mindful of the size of the opportunity and the risk that you're willing to run in your life. Just for instance, in the kids app space, there are lots of the best-selling kids apps out there are doing $1 million a year in salary or in revenue or something like that, and it's like 2 to 3 people who are generating nice income for themselves, but the business is never going beyond that. So I think I think it's fine to develop something on a hobby basis next to your job and see if it works. If it generates revenue, that's great. But I would say you need to see really strong potential before you kind of leave the day job and go full time, or you need to have a really strong conviction that this can become a lot bigger before you kind of leave your job, especially if you've got dependents and are not prepared to run, a lot of risk. It's interesting, right? Because I have lots of conversations when I meet super smart, driven people in their 20s. I'm like, dude, you just gotta keep building. Just trying. Also, I mean, you have nothing to lose. You're 25. You're 28. You can always get a real job when you're 30. If it doesn't work, just build. And if you look at the statistics, also, I think I saw a note somewhere to saying that the average age of a successful entrepreneur measured by significant exits is 42 or something like that, right?
Really?
So I think it takes a while to actually get there. So I think learn early, and if you're in your 40s and you've never built an app before, a digital business, I think it's fine to use some of your savings, put out a product in a market that you know really well, learn a lot, and it might generate significant income for you, but it may not become a big business that justifies you leaving your job, or maybe it will. I guess it's the closest I can get to it. 45.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's a really good answer. I think it's such a difficult one to quantify, but I see it all the time.
Yeah, I think, if you got a family and kids and they depend on you, then I would think twice before just cutting your income, or even if you have some savings, saying, oh, I can just live off my savings for 2 years. Well, if that savings is meant for your retirement or your kids' college, I think you need to really be certain that this business is going to work out before you make that complete life change. Yeah. It's very easy to put an app out, and a lot of people realize, oh, I can just put out an app. It can be huge. I've got this idea. I talked about it with my buddies on the golf course. This is going to be amazing. But there's so much more that needs to happen from just putting out an app to anyone ever hearing about that app, to you building continuing to build a really high retention product that monetizes well, and for you to raise money, etc. It's actually super, super complicated.
Yeah, and I'm aware we're coming to the end of our session here. So, and Andy asks, Christian, what do you consider your biggest successes? And he says with Sweet Capital, but you can enlarge upon that if you'd like.
Biggest successes, I would say I think our biggest success is our ability to be supportive of so many founders in different places in the world. I think the King founders until recently have been working at King full time, right? So we've been flying founders to Stockholm to do workshops and product with the King founders. 4 of them are based in Stockholm, right? So we've managed to make that work. We've done lots of kind of working sessions remotely with them. And then interestingly, I've kind of copied the Midnight Runners playbook a little bit in creating community. So every year we bring all the founders together from all over the world for 4 days, typically involving surfing. Last year it was Costa Rica.
Awesome.
This year it's Lisbon. And because we found that they have so much in common, so if we can just connect these founders to each other, they will help each other out with fundraising, with hiring, with all the kind of things that you come by. So we are really trying to create a sense of a family where people's got each other's back and are willing to do that. So for me, I think that's the greatest success, because building a community is one of the hardest things you can do. Most VCs, I think that they can just have an event or sponsor an event or have a Slack channel, and that's a community. We have people that are, they go to each other's weddings, and it's really quite magical, and they're from all over the world. Many of them have known each other and been to 4 of our events together. So I think that's probably what I'm proudest of.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I love that idea. And I've been doing live events for 4 or 5 years now with Virgin Startup, and then through the Festival Events Prize. And I remember my mentor last year, and she'd sold her business to Auto Trader for 100 and something million. Now had multiple businesses she'd invested in, and her advice to me was, do you know what your biggest strength is, Alex? She goes, is actually the network that you've developed through having like 300 people on a podcast, through having 300 people at founders at live events. She goes, what are you doing to keep in touch with these people? And I was like, nothing. And she was like, instead of doing all these singular events with like one speaker, you should be doing something like you're talking about, getting everybody together, or as many people as possible, because you'll find the commonalities and the potential magic, I bet you, that comes off the back of those events that you're putting together must be, there's no ceiling on it, is there really? No.
I love when you create something where you can kind of step back and the whole thing happens without you there.
Yeah.
I saw it with Midnight Runners. Even in the early days, like typically we capped our weekly events to 200 people per event, and people would come up who had only met each other once before, and they were like hugging each other, and amazing. We've had babies being born from people that met in Midnight Runners, and similarly in Sweet Capital, we have all these people that have deep relationships to each other, and some of the businesses that didn't work out, the other founders hire the other founders to be like for senior roles in their companies. So it's magical.
That is awesome. And for you then, maybe to finish up personally, was moving to Lisbon always like a long-term aim, or was it something lifestyle was something that you came across recently that you thought, I want to do this?
I think so. My wife is Portuguese, so we've been kind of thinking about leaving London for a while. We have 2 young boys, and I think I'm a big outdoorsy person, so I think I would love to connect the kids to the outdoors more. So moving here, I now surf twice a week with my 5-year-old. So things like that are hard to do when you live in London, right? So
yeah,
it was kind of a combination of lifestyle, better weather, and I do travel a lot, and but a lot of the deals that we do remotely anyway. So it doesn't really matter where I live in London or Manchester or Lisbon.
Yeah. And maybe just to finish up, last question. I'm sure you're a busy man. What are you kind of most excited about working on right now? It could be what we talked about offline, or is there a particular business, with this Sweet Capital that you're particularly interested in getting involved in? What's on the agenda that most excites you at the moment? Maybe it's a couple of things, I don't know.
Yeah, I am hugely excited about this idea of people educating themselves online, acquiring a new skill or a new degree, or learning more about themselves. And I think there's so much coming now. It started, kind of started with masterclass in a sense, but now you're having like Zoom out there. So you're seeing this merger of tech platforms with high quality educational content. Lots of universities are now making their curriculum available for free online. So I think there will be apps coming out, and we've invested in some we can't talk about yet, that are super, super exciting. I think when people are restricted from their travel, or a lot of people are losing their income, I'm so inspired by founders that want to make education available, or provide ways for, or means for people to actually make income remotely. So I think that's the one that we're kind of most passionate about now.
Great, that's really interesting to hear. We will watch what developments occur over the next few months then, and maybe as a last port of call for people who, most people watch this on the replay or hear it on the podcast. Best way to connect with yourself, Sweet Capital, if people have an idea, what's the easiest way they can get in front of somebody to have a look and listen?
I think the easiest way is just to send us an email at founders@sweetcapital.com. Because we, all of those will land on my desk and Pippa Lamb, my business partner's desk. So, and we do open all of these decks and we look at them. I'm excited and honored that people are considering us for these things. As I said, we do receive a lot of these decks, so we can't please everybody and invest in everybody, but we try to really pick the best talent no matter where they are, what education that they have. Some of our best founders are university dropouts, so everybody should feel the courage if they have a great idea and they have a clear idea of how this is a market where they can make money. We would love to find ways to support them.
Awesome. Well, look, we're bang on time, 1 o'clock. Thank you once again for coming on today. Adam, Caroline, Andy, also thank you very much indeed as well. Everybody haven't had the chance, been so ingrained in the conversation, haven't had the chance to look at our social channels, but I know we've been live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. So thank you all for watching on there. Christian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Likewise, and I wanted to just say a last point here. We're about to release a really interesting piece of content about the journey of being an entrepreneur. So it's going to be out in a few weeks, and it's a piece of content that's a little bit unusual for a VC or a fund to put out. It's kind of combining art and tech and gaming and music all in one. So, and that is also the kickoff of a speaker series where we're actually doing a monthly interview with some awesome founders, really digging in and asking them the hard questions. And these will be interactive as well. So people who are listening in today or are listening in on demand will also be able to come in and ask questions. So if you go to our website, sweetcapital.com, you'll be able to sign up for these and be notified.
Sounds super interesting, combining all those different forces.
Yeah, the first chapter we have is on Black entrepreneurship. And we will be interviewing Guy Primus from Valence. He's one of the top 50 Black executives in America. We'll be interviewing Michael Johnson, the Olympic sprinter.
Awesome.
Building a new business that we're actually investing in. We'll be interviewing Edith Cooper from Medley, who is she was actually the first female Black executive at Goldman Sachs. She's on the board of Slack and a few other tech companies, and she's building a new company that is really interesting. We're interviewing Sharmadine Reed from Beauty Stack that you probably are familiar with. So super excited about that. So we'll invite you all to come and listen.
Yeah, great. I've put the website up there as well. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, seeing this on the replay, we'll be able to see that. So sweetcapital.com. And when do you expect the first episode of that to drop, did you say, Christian?
I think we'll probably do the first episode in the middle of October.
Okay, perfect. Great. Well, listen, everybody, thank you all for coming on board today. As Christian said, sweetcapital.com is the easiest way to get in touch, find out more information if you are considering pitching for early stage investments from Sweet Capital. I'm Alex Chisnell. I've posted up my LinkedIn profile again there. Always happy to connect with everybody on here online. I'll also, if I haven't already, drop Christian a connection request as well. And yeah, we're going to be back again tomorrow. I'm going to be hosting Dell at 10 a.m. tomorrow for our next live webinar on the Festival Enterprise. So thank you once again for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Christian, enjoy the rest of the week. And stay in touch. Thank you
so much, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.